Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Actually, it was kind of funny. Before we recorded our last episode, we were actually having a bit of a chat about how the algorithm's affecting content and whatever. We almost should have had the cameras on for that, but we're going to talk about it today in a bit more detail because it's never far from our minds, obviously, because we've had that interest in movies, TV, etc., and how it was, and we've lamented about kind of where it's gone and all of that. And just to start with, there's this sort of story that I saw where a poll was conducted about across a number of US-based film industry executives and their opinion of the future of the theatrical experience. So it's effectively going to the cinema to watch movies, with around 55% of them thinking that traditional movie going will no longer be a viable business model sometime within the next 20 years. I mean, I don't think that that's much of a surprise from where we're coming from. I think I know for me, leaving aside the actual I mean, I know it's about what the content is itself, but I've felt like from where I came from, really loving the whole the cultural aspect of it, and the fact that there was a delivery of high quality storytelling when I was growing up. And everyone says, this is newer stuff, so maybe you're stuck in the past or whatever. But I actually did notice, like, I was consistently loving it up until around the mid to late 2000s, and then over the course of the next 10 years it just kind of dropped off a cliff for me because it all got hollowed out, and they're wondering why this is happening. And then you've got the rise of basically screens everywhere. So in
big screens too, Ben.
That's right, big screens everywhere that you can watch anything, anywhere, anytime. Rise of social media and things like TikTok videos that are grabbing people's attention. People might want to be engaging with that rather than I've got to get dressed and actually go out and walk down to the cinema or drive to the cinema and actually waste my whole afternoon watching one piece of content when I could be flipping between them on a screen at home or wherever I happen to be. And it's easy to blame that component as contributing. Obviously it's contributing, but it was not just that. It was the fact that they were hollowing out the content well before this ever came up. And we can joke about they're writing scripts with AI these days, but I actually as you've said, and which I concur completely, is that they were doing that all on their own without an algorithm before, because they were just copying and pasting older material and just recycling it and thinking that, oh wow, the public's going to accept it as something good. That's the disconnect for me. Like, they're thinking, all right, 55% of these executives think the traditional movie-going experience isn't going to be a viable business model, yet they don't understand that all their decisions are actually contributing to that. Well, then that's what's going to happen. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was shocked to think that 55% of the industry says that that's it for cinema. Well, if they're saying it, I guess it's true. I personally wouldn't have thought that. But yes, the way movies are going, well, what can we say? They're certainly not what they used to be. And you're absolutely right. If you released the Lord of the Rings trilogy today, each 3 hours, would anyone have the time? I mean, that cuts into my TikTok time and whatever else I'm doing online. So they have hollowed out scripts. I find now that the movies I go and actually watch in the cinema, I could probably quite comfortably and enjoyably watch at home, because we have big screens at home now. And the big action, full of CGI, exciting films just really aren't worth the effort, and certainly aren't worth the price. So it becomes a really difficult choice, but it's probably those 55%. I'd put it at them that they're the ones killing the industry, and if they don't have any faith in it, they should have a long, hard look at themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I can saying that it's going. we'll take it literally, where they say traditional movie going experience, that would be just a cinema. If it happened to be, I could imagine a future where, I don't know, maybe all these screens become IMAX or something, and that's the experience in the future. You pay $50 a ticket to watch a audio visual spectacular rather than just a film that you're going to go see. That might be something that finds a niche in the market that can sustain itself, essentially, and then the rest of it is just pumped to whatever screen we happen to be carrying with us at the time.
I think that's a great point you make. I would have thought that, when you see a really big performers, say someone like Tay-Tay or Katy Perry, those shows are actually the new cinema. And, there's probably no reason in the future. You're right. You're in a totally round, immersive space with holograms and lights and all sorts of things. And your performer is beaming in, but live from, 15,000 kilometres away. I think in my mind, that's probably the spectacular of the future. That's what you get dressed up to go out and see. But just to go and see a remake of a sequel, probably not.
Well, one day we may do, and this is a side note, we may do a Star Wars retrospective in the future. That was part of our discussion before we got on to our episode last week, and I'm kind of looking forward to that because there's a little bit of, but we have to make sure you catch up with it all before we do it properly.
Well, after an embargo that's lasted the better part, I guess, of 25 years or something, I'll finally get around to the Phantom Menace very shortly. Absolutely.
And I guess moving on from this, because I think that's like a specific example of a broader issue around, we're not starved for information, we're starved for like the quality of the information. So the idea, like, obviously we watched this video now that, was talking about that, where essentially it's, everything we're consuming, not only is it an overload of information, which I think it sort of underestimates biologically that we haven't really had a culture, society, whatever you want to call it, that has so inundated our senses with this much information so much of the time that you'd have to wonder whether there's a bit of circuitry overload going there for in trying to keep up with it. And, like the idea that you probably, maybe one of the reasons you're feeling more tired these days is because you're just bombarded with so much information to process that your brain can't just switch off, because there's always something else to watch, there's always something else to read, there's always something else to follow, and it's just never ending. And that's the issue with the algorithm, and everything being geared towards an algorithm rather than for a cultural reason or something like that. And it's like the McDonald's of, it's turning everything into like a McDonald's diet. So thinking back to the cinema analogy from before, that movies have now turned, like most movies are like eating a cheeseburger for every meal now. That's why it's not satisfying. You might like a cheeseburger once a month, but if you had it every single night of the week, you'll get sick of it pretty quickly. And that's kind of what's happening with the culture more generally when you think of the social media information that's pumping through, because it's all mixed up with fake AI generated crap, and you don't know what you're looking at is true or not. You have to sort of disconnect, and that, I think at the end of the day, if you're inundated with that level of what would you call low nutrient information, and that's all you're swallowing, that's got to affect people mentally. And that might also be, I don't know, like, it's not just me, I think there's people that I've spoken to who just feel uncomfortable. Like it's like they can't articulate. It's hard to articulate. I'm sort of doing a verbal mishmash of it now, that it just doesn't feel right. A bit like if you ate a cheeseburger once a day for a year, you might not feel so good at the end of that year.
Or even if you just want to, using the cheeseburger analogy, supersize me, Morgan Spurlock, and he only did that for a month, so maybe we should do a super social me for a month and see what happens. You're right. I think the other thing where the real overload comes in, because I've had this remarked to me by older generations, that every generation, young generation, seems to think they're the first to have kids, the first to be faced with a particular problem, you know, whether it's buying a house or just finding your way in the world, or the political and the geopolitics of the day. You know, what are we going to do about it? But increasingly, because of social media, we get a lot of hubris and hyperbole across this, where, you know, we're really like, you know, every moment is a humbling moment, or it's a shocking moment, or it's a revelation that's changed my life moment. And it's just not. It's just another experience you're going through. But the socials reinforce this, and they really press it upon us. And so I think we overinterpret a lot of what happens to us, and rather than working through the same problems every generation, the same problems, existential issues that every human has, instead we turn them into my story, and my story is, you know, the most important thing that's ever happened, and I'm going to share it. And all it does is it creates that echo chamber, until the echo chamber these days, I think after 10 years of echo chambers, I think what we're doing is we're creating alternate realities.
Yeah, exactly. That's a wonderfully optimistic thought for the future, because especially when you think about the self-reinforcing behavior, it's like you get stuck in a loop, and there's no, you know, whereas, you know, using that example that you're dealing with something and then you move on, you know, the social media element probably keeping you trapped there, so that you can you know, keep bouncing off other people, get your view counts up, etc., etc.
Every time I try to get out, the socials drag me back in.
Exactly. It's just I don't know. I just you know, I still, you know, have a sense of optimism. That's just, you know, how I am. I wake up in the morning, I feel optimistic. I might then watch the news and, you know, see a country's being bombed, for instance, and then wondering, oh, okay, what hope is there for us? But I wonder, just like cyclically, that we're going through a period of yet another period of history. You know, that old thing, you know, history rhymes, etc. We've got the technological component that's added a different flavor to the whole thing at the moment. And it may be that, you know, we've got it might just be one of those things that is worked through our system. So we've had this you know, infusion of technology, you know, that's you know, been good and bad. It's, you know, quite often started off as a good thing, and then it gets perverted in a way. And maybe it's just a natural cycle that we have to go through. But it's just hard to see at the moment where that realization is going to come from.
Oh, look, I agree. And I think what's interesting is, historically, we've looked to strong leadership to give us certainty, to give us a beacon to steer our course towards. And if we go back and say, look at the big or strong leaders of the 20th century, they and good and bad, they project an image, they project a path forward, and people can get on board with that. It's a one voice with people following. And what that does is that takes uncertainty out of the human mind, for better or for worse. So that, I'm not saying this is a cure or anything, I'm just saying that this is the way it works. People can follow one voice, and then you follow as a community or a group, and you take strength from that. And, you know, whether it's, you know, following Churchill to believe that you can win, or hanging tough will get you through the tough times, or whether it's a president like Kennedy who takes us to the moon, and we achieve those goals because everyone believes it. It's a single voice. When you have uncertainty and all you have is uncertain voices and voices that are always projecting the fear or the risk that exists and exacerbating that, which is what we get through the socials, then you have a fragmented, concerned, worried, anxious society, and that's a society that's really will always struggle to find a way forward through whatever crises or whatever situations that society finds itself in.
Maybe just to finish up too, which I just find it interesting, the idea that what seemed like just a technological innovation, you know, like but which could have easily have been any other that has come along, and obviously started off in a positive way, and it's had such a dramatic impact. I'm obviously singling out social media in this instance because just like we were saying before we started, that I'm getting sick of this idea that the phone is to blame, because it's not actually the phone, it's what's actually happening on the phone. And prior to the real proliferation of social media, the phone was actually really, this is a wonderful tool that's been invented, but the phone's not a great thing if all you're doing on it is engaging in social media feeds 24/7. So that's the bit that I'd really like to see fixed in a way, that idea that and it's hard because it's gone out to billions of people, and all of us have different tolerances for different things, and how we or whether we get addicted to it or not addicted to it, and it's just really hard, and it games the system that there'll always be a certain percentage that it'll always have that impact on.
I totally look. The internet as well was a wonderful community, and then once you have, I guess, the insidious elements and the less than desirable characteristics of humanity all gravitating towards it, it becomes a very unsavory place. And I think, people only see what they choose to see. So, the internet, mobile phones have revolutionised our world, and in many ways made it better. As you say, wonderful tools. But there's also a side to the internet that everyone, because they don't use it for nefarious purpose, just seem to ignore. But there's a whole side to the internet that's all about laundering money, crime, and all the horrible, nasty things. And this is largely channeled through the back channels of social media, and no one seems willing to address it. What else can we say?
Absolutely. All right, we'll leave it on that nice positive note. Maybe we should all just go watch films as a communal experience again, but I'm not holding my breath. I think I'm probably with the executives on this one.
The cinema used to be the heart of the community. And since cinema has taken a turn for the worse, look at what the world's become.
Yep, a nice little wrap up there. Absolutely. All right, so that's it for this week's episode. We'll catch you next time.